How's it going, everyone, and welcome back to the Posada Wind Jerry Rooftop, where today I'm going to be bringing you another episode of the Switch Stance Tuitional series. This one we're going to look at the semi-switch Kono and the Skopu. The semi-switch Kono was actually the first move that I landed in switch stance, and I think it's a great one to start out with when you're looking to make quick progression, as it's quite easy to land your first ones wet. Throughout the video, I'm going to be referring to the move as the Skopu, but the technique is exactly the same for the semi-switch Kono and the Skopu, so you know that they both can relate to one another. So, first things first, what do we need in the preparation for the Skopu? Well, we need a lot of power, and ideally some flat water, or maybe a consistent bit of chop. The key to this move is having a lot of power in your sail, so being able to go switch with speed and duck confidently is going to be a really fundamental skill here. If you haven't learned how to go switch and duck yet, don't worry, I've got a whole video based on that. You can click up here to check that out first and then come back to this video. Looking at the angle that we want to go switch in then, we really want to be on that 10 to 20 degrees downwind. If we're going too far downwind for the Skopu, then we're going to have to carve upwind a long way, and doing this will lose speed throughout the carve, and then you'll be in a worse position for the takeoff. An ideal duck is where you catch the sail right in front of you. A big common mistake that I often see is that people do a duck that goes really low to the water and think that's the opportune moment to go for a switch Kono or a Skopu. However, this move and the carve is all about generating power in the sail so that we can explode up. If the sail is too far back and low to the water, we're going to struggle to generate this power, and this is where people tend to do those flop around switch Konos. So let's talk about this carve. As I said, we want to be ducking the sail at about 10 to 20 degrees downwind, but we want to be taking off about across the wind or just up from across the wind. That means it's not a radical carve, we're not carving a long way, and we're certainly not going into the wind, but we want to keep as much power in the sail as possible, and the carve is going to generate that power. What we're going to do is apply pressure to the sail, and that is what's going to give us the height for the move. How do we generate this power then? We want to have our feet over the center line and using our toes to carve the board slowly back to across the wind. We want to then have our weight over the boom, our shoulders ideally over the boom, so we can control that power that's going to be coming on. And keeping a nice straight front arm is going to mean that you have full control of that power. As soon as you break the front arm, you're going to spill all the power in the sail and you're not going to get any height for the rotation. At this point, I'm going to reiterate that you really want to be doing this in a gust so that you can maximize the amount of power that you have in the sail. Right then, onto the takeoff for the Skopu. And one of the things I see most commonly done wrong is the fact that people think that you need to jump up and then you land on the spot. In fact, like all freestyle moves, the Skopu in particular, you really want to be traveling forward in the direction that you came into the maneuver. Even on a semi-switch Kono, you really want to be sliding backwards due to this forward momentum that you've had. And at this point, if you're doing this on your semi-switch Konos, then you are ready to go for a Skopu. Right, let's really take a deep dive into the takeoff then. At no point do you ever jump backwards during the Skopu. You really want to be throwing both hands up and forwards, and your head should be forwards between your arms. You really want to think about diving forwards towards the sail in order to get that sail to give you all the lift. We are not ourselves jumping around this maneuver at all. We are generating and maneuvering the power in the sail to give us that height and rotation. If we look at this water housing angle, it really gives a good perspective of how far forward you want to be throwing the sail. You really don't want to have that sail in front of you. You want it in front of your front leg so that you can lift that sail up, get that travel forward so you can get the slide ready for your Skopu landing. If you've done all of this correctly, then you should feel a huge surge of power and you'll start to be thrown into the air. Keep pushing through the sail as you're going up until you've got no more power in that backwinded side. And once you get to this position, you'll likely be upside down. It's then ready to bring yourself back down and then ready for the landing and the slide. Once you're flying through the air at this point, make sure to keep your front arm really straight and start to slowly bend your back arm so that you're ready to pull yourself back over the sail. At this point, it's when our two moves kind of become a little bit separate. So the switch Kono at this point, we're going to be coming down, landing, sliding backwards, and we're going to sail away in the direction that we came from. Whereas the Skopu, we're going to be coming down and then we're going to be sliding around before carving out of the rotation to then go back the way we came from. So there's a slightly different technique due to this, and we're going to break down the switch Kono first. For the semi-switch kono, we're only doing that 180 degrees. So we want to bring ourselves and the sail back over the center line as much as possible. To do this, we're going to pull in with that back arm and make sure our head is traveling back forwards over our front leg so that we can land directly over the center line. As I said before, you should now be sliding backwards from the forward momentum that you've already gained on the takeoff, and you've got to gather that slide before sheeting in and sailing away. If you're landing these switch konos bolt upright with the sail and your body over the board without getting wet, really start to now think about Skopus, leave the semi-switch kono behind because you don't want to build up bad habits. It's a little bit like the Vulcan and the Spock. Once you've landed your first good one, it's time to then move on to the Skopu. Talking about the Skopu, let's then move on to the technique of how we land and come away from our Skopus. The key difference between the semi-switch kono and the Skopu is going to be the angle of the mast on the landing. We really want to get that sail at an angle so that the mast foot pressure pushes the nose of the board around, combined with us unlocking the rail is what's going to give us that rotation into the last part of the Skopu. The key difference then begins in the air. When we're pulling ourselves back down, we really want to exaggerate and scoop the sail, keeping our front arm really straight, and we're bringing that back arm almost as if you're getting into the shaka position. This is going to give you the angle of the mast coming down diagonally, which is then going to push the nose of the board around as you land, which is going to put you back in that back-winded position, ready to complete the rotation. You might be thinking, what am I talking about when I refer to this mast angle? If we think about it in terms of physics and mast foot pressure, if I put weight down from the mast, directly down, it's very difficult to move the board side to side. Whereas if I put pressure at an angle, the board is much more likely to slide. And we can use this piece of paper here to demonstrate that exactly. You can see I'm putting weight with my finger directly down and I can't really move the paper at all. But then if I push my finger to the side and I push at an angle, the paper slides around no problem. This is exactly the same as what's going on during the landing of a Skopu. The last thing to think about on the landing, once you've got that nice mast angle, is to unlock the rail. We do this by making sure our weight is all on our front leg and on our toes. If our weight is on our heels, then the rail is going to catch the water and it's going to bog and we're going to get stuck and probably fall backwards with the power that's backwinding us in the sail. Make sure, as I said, to keep your weight on your front foot, on the toes, and that way your board will be nice and flat and should slide around the rest of the Skopu no problem. Once you're in this position, where you're back facing the way you came in that backwinded position, all it is exactly the same as a funnel, a burner, a puñeta. We're just carving downwind, looking over our shoulder, controlling the power in the sail. Right then guys, to round out the video, let's have a look at some of my key tips that I think you should really focus on when you're learning to Skopu. Remember, on that carve, when you're starting the preparation to take off, you want to keep that front arm nice and straight and be really patient. Wait for that power to come on and don't take off until you've got the maximum power possible. Once you take off, make sure you're traveling forwards the whole time through the air, keeping that front arm straight, of course. And then finally, you really want to focus on that scoop, bringing that front arm down, pulling that back arm in, and that's going to give you that nice mast angle to unlock the nose of the board that's going to help you spin around. Hopefully you've taken something from this video, guys, and whether you're at the start of your semi-switch kono career or you're looking to make your Skopus more consistent or even turn them into air Skopus, this video has helped you. If you want to see more tutorials like this, make sure to subscribe. Every click helps me to produce more videos for you guys, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.